Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little bit different than what you'll usually find here. I've been wanting to do a video like this for quite some time, but recently I've been dealing with some things that made me really decide, all right, now is the time that I want to do this. And today what this is I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that I and other people like me have to face as content creators, and this is both just in YouTube in terms of my reaction videos and also in the FGC in terms of my fighting game videos or streams. Challenges we face as chronically ill or disabled individuals, because it is a very different experience. And before I really get into it, I just want to start off right off the bat by saying it could be a lot worse. And I think most chronically ill people and most chronically ill streamers and YouTubers would agree with me when I say that we're fortunate to be able to do this and get some sort of revenue out of it, to have something we can do from home because it's often very difficult to get around, and a lot of people who have to keep to a more regular outside of the home job have it a lot worse. So I don't want to act like, oh, poor YouTubers with such a terrible, difficult life. But there are some challenges that come with being chronically ill and disabled that you don't have if you are a content creator or a streamer or a player who is not. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. The reason that I was thinking about it currently is because, as some of you guys may know, if you've been on my Patreon or my YouTube, I've been having a pretty rough couple of weeks. For the past 2 weeks or so, I've been having a huge kind of flare up, and I haven't really been able to film or do anything. I've spent most of the last 2 weeks in bed, not even really sitting up. So, for some background, if you don't know, I'm not going to get into a ton of details about this, but my particular issues, chronic illness, I have first a condition that is called endometriosis, and I have a pretty severe case of it. It's a condition where cells, tissue that's similar to what is found in a woman's uterine lining, grows and exists in other places throughout the body where it really shouldn't be. So mostly in the pelvic cavity, but it can be in other places as well. Lots of women have it in their diaphragm. And this obviously causes some dysfunction. So it creates lesions, which lead to a ton of inflammation in the area, and pressures placed on nerves, which causes just constant continuous pain. And it also can lead to these lesions forming adhesions, which are basically like stringy tissue, that can connect things together that should not be connected together. So for me, some of my internal organs are connected together and others of them are connected to my pelvic sidewall. And what this means is that anything that involves walking around, anytime I'm walking in any sort of way, those organs are being pulled in ways that they should not be. And this can happen in any sort of movement, sometimes just with sitting up. Obviously, this also causes problems with eating, digesting, going to the bathroom. It causes huge amounts of fatigue. The level of pain and fatigue of severe endometriosis is said to be on the same level of end-stage cancer, because it's similar to what it is. It's basically like a cancer, except one that doesn't just kill you. It's basically what it is. And a lot of women deal with this, and it's very hard to diagnose. It takes years for it to be diagnosed. Mine at this point is it is disabling. And it can lead to a lot of other issues, including my other major chronic health issue, which is chronic intractable, meaning not currently treatable migraines. So usually multiple times a week, I will have severe migraines, which if I'm not having terrible pain from my endometriosis, they can knock me out completely, where I just have to lay in a dark room with ice on my head and I can't really do anything at all. My vision's impacted. I'm horrendously nauseous. I have trouble speaking. So it suffices to say, my life is very difficult, and it's gotten to the point where I pretty much need to be at home. I can't really work outside the home. So that's just a little bit about me, and there are lots of other chronic illnesses, disabilities. There's overlap between the two, but that they have their own challenges, so I don't want to group us all together under one completely. But there are some things in common that we kind of, all of us have to face. And again, I was thinking about this because I've just had a pretty terrible 2-week flare up where really I was barely able to get out of bed at all for those 2 weeks. So that was preventing me from doing things. But okay, so the big things that I want to talk about, challenges that people who are chronically ill or disabled would face in this context. A lot of them revolve around 3 things: consistency, just time in general, and accessibility. So things that you might not think about that much, but come into play when you're dealing with one of these health issues. So consistency being the first one, and this is the one that comes up for me the most. So if you're someone that has a chronic illness in particular, and one that can attack you basically at any time, and that can last for you don't know how long, sometimes just a few hours and then you're feeling okay. Sometimes you're knocked out for 2 weeks at a time. That there's no specific triggers that bring it on, that it just does what it does sometimes. That makes it very difficult to keep to a consistent schedule. And that is one of the primary reasons that for people like me, it's also hard to work outside the home. It's the primary reason I had to leave my PhD program, because I just could not maintain a schedule and the level of work that was required to go along with that, with what I was dealing with. So when you're a content creator, people prefer that you have some sort of regular schedule so they can know when you're going to be streaming, so they can know when videos are going to be coming, so that they're not waiting sometimes a couple weeks in between videos if you're doing a series of videos. And that is completely understandable. I know, because I'm also a viewer. I'm also a person who subs to people on Twitch sometimes or on Patreon, and it can be hard to wait and keep going for like a month if they haven't showed up at all. I totally get it. But it's a very different experience for somebody with a chronic illness trying to be consistent than it is for somebody who is completely healthy or just normally average amount of health, and is just going about their day-to-day life and then streaming some other times, on the side. It would be, if this was 3 years ago, it would have been no problem for me to sit down and say, I'm gonna stream 3 times a week for 2 hours at the same time of day, and then 3 other days in the week, I'm going to devote a chunk of 5 hours a day to working on filming and editing my YouTube videos. And then they'll go up at the same time every week. And I would have easily been able to do that. I used to be a teacher. I used to be a PhD student. Again, I had good organizational skills and was able to keep a schedule, we'll just say. But now I do not really have any say over when I'm physically capable of sitting in front, even just in front of a camera and computer and talking to people. Just sitting up at all. Sometimes I'll have a day where I feel like I can sit up. I could sit in this chair and I could probably communicate. I could speak. I don't have a migraine, but I'm in so much pain from my endometriosis that, one, I can't stand up long enough to take a shower to get myself ready to stream or film. I literally can't stand in the shower for the 10 to 15 minutes that it might take. I can't stand up that long. And that's not a joke. That's just reality. Or I will be in so much pain that by the time I took my shower, got ready, sat down here, placed myself propped up to watch things, I'd be trying to watch, say, a video to do a reaction, and I would be in so much pain I could barely concentrate. I wouldn't be able to like really pay attention to the show that I was trying to focus on. So of course I wouldn't be able to give good insight or a good discussion session. And I don't really see the point in putting out low like effort videos where all you're going to see is me grimacing at the screen a few times and then I completely even forget what happened in the episode, or where I'm not physically up to engaging with chat if it's a stream, for instance. So it's in a difficult position where you can't be consistent. You can try, you can do the best that you can, but when your health is completely out of your hands like that, basically you get to a point where you're just like, all right, on days when I feel good, that's when I'm gonna film, that's when I'm gonna stream, that's when I'm gonna play games for practice, that's when I'm gonna engage with people online, but I don't know when that's gonna be. And sometimes you'll have 2 weeks in a row where you feel pretty good every day, and so you get a ton of stuff done, and that'll be when you see me posting like 12 videos all at once, because I was able to sit down 2 days in a row and just film, 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 and then edit them over the next couple days. And sometimes I will disappear for 2 to 3 weeks, and I'll try to say something or engage online, but I won't be able to film anything. And it's because I literally am not able to sit up for that long or stand up long enough to shower. And it's embarrassing to talk about these things. It's difficult, but I do think it's important to try to point out that it's not that I don't want to be doing it. It's not that I don't care about people wanting consistent releases and everything. I do, but I can't. I physically can't. And that's just one of the challenges. So that's a big one. And then a second one that's related to that has to do with time. This comes in a lot when just talking about if you're a streamer of a fighting game, because you have to put a lot of time and effort into learning the fighting game and continuing to practice it to improve. And then, of course, you have to put a lot of time into filming and editing videos for both my fighting game stuff and my reaction videos. For the reaction videos, I don't think you guys realize how much time will go into one of those. So say it takes me an hour and a half to film one episode reaction of a like 45-minute long show, add in my discussions at the beginning and end, and that's just the filming time, okay? And then when you get down to actually editing the video, sometimes just the full length and a shorter version, sometimes just the shorter version. But if you have to edit the full length and the shorter version, you have to process both of those after you're done with the editing. Then you have to upload them. I upload them to Google Drive, the time it takes to do that before I can go through and actually post it, say, to Patreon or then later to YouTube. It takes me, usually, if I'm lucky, 5 or 6 hours to get one video. So that could be just one little short video. That's 5 or 6 hours worth of work. So just, I know it doesn't seem like it because it's like sometimes 10 minutes of footage, but it is. It takes that long. And part of that is just how it is for all content creators. But the difficulty for somebody who has chronic illness or disability issues in terms of that, what makes it somewhat different and more challenging, is I only have so many hours of a day, even on one of my good days, when I can function. There are 0 days of the year where I do not feel unwell. I have pain every day. I have fatigue every day. I have dysfunction every day. There are good days, which is when I can function for a few hours. Then there are not so good days, which is when I can function for a few hours, but it's very difficult. And then there are bad days when I can't do anything. So even on a good day, so a day where, like today currently is a good day. I was able to get up, shower, put my makeup on, get set up in front of my screen, film here. I was able to do a little bit of practicing earlier, and I'm gonna do some editing after this. A good day like this, I have, if I'm lucky, maybe 6 hours in total that I will be productive. So if you think about most people in their day, they can work like an 8 hour day, sometimes longer shifts. And then you also have to include commuting, you have to include all the day to day functions, basic things you do in your life. You're probably functioning up and around doing things for at least a good 14, 16 hours a day. Now imagine if everything you had to do in that time you had to condense down into 6 hours because you physically couldn't function any longer than that. Everything that I do in a day has to fit into those 6 hours. That includes showering, like I talked about, getting dressed. That includes feeding myself and cooking and then cleaning up after that. Any cleaning I have to do around the house, taking care of the animals, and you guys know I have a lot of cats that I take care of. All just the day-to-day things that you have to do to live. I have to fit that into my 6 hours. And then if I'm gonna sit down and stream, if I stream for 3 hours and say I rush through everything, so it only takes me like an hour, maybe hour and a half to do all of my necessary tasks, I'm now at 4.5 hours. So now I only have another maybe hour and a half on a good day where I can get anything else done. So if I'm gonna then edit a video, that'll be it, and it won't even be done. I won't even be done editing the video, but that will be my whole day and pretty much all I can do. And from that point on, I'll have to lay down on my back, and the only things I'll be able to do are things that I can do from laying down position. So it's difficult. It's difficult if you're somebody that has a health issue like this that is chronic and that causes fatigue and a lot of pain, or somebody that suffers with certain disabilities. You literally don't have the same amount of time to get stuff done. And this carries over a lot into the fighting games as well, because as I said, you need to practice and play a lot if you want to improve and get better. You have to study things a lot. And for me, if it's one of those situations where I just had one whole week that was terrible and I couldn't do anything, and now suddenly it's a week later and I have one day where I feel good. All right, what am I going to do with my 6 hours today? Well, I haven't filmed any reaction videos for Patreon in a week, so I better film at least a couple of those and get started on the editing. And now that's it. I don't have any other time. That's it. My day is done. So there was no stream. There was no practicing for fighting games at all. Nothing like that was going to happen. Or if that day instead I decide that I'm going to stream and I'm going to practice fighting games, I won't get anything done for my reaction videos or for Patreon. So you have to make these choices. And of course, like I said, that's on good days. And you have more bad days than good days a lot of the time. So consistency and time to put into things, those are some of the big challenges. And if you are somebody that is like involved in, say, fighting games, it can be a struggle to feel like you're not getting better or fast enough, or even in general. And you have to try to kind of push that aside and say, well, I'm just trying to, have fun, be a part of my community, make content. And I'm definitely not ever going to be the best player. And that's just how it is. I just physically don't have the time. And you just have to accept that. But it's difficult to try to kind of explain to your community. And then, of course, the other big one that a lot of people face is accessibility. And this can take on many different forms. So for me, with fighting games, of course, one of it is controllers. One of my issues with my migraines is that they lead to hand tremors and weakness at times. So this means I can only utilize the controller, hold it for so long. I've gotten a hitbox that I'm going to be trying to work on to learn, and I think that will be a lot better for me. So accessibility, other devices can be good for that sort of thing. But of course, then it comes back to the time issue. I need to have the time to actually practice on it to get better. So when you don't have the time, you're just kind of stuck with, all right, well, I can only play for a short amount of time on here, on my controller. And that's again, just what it is. Other accessibility issues in terms of your setup here. Like I said, I can't even sit up a lot of the time. I have to be laying nearly flat for large chunks of every day. and some days for all day. So, of course, I can't stream from that sort of setup because I'm in bed. You don't have the tools. If I had some sort of like desk setup that I could put over top of my bed and put all of my things on there, um, then I could conceivably stream from in bed, and then I'd be able to stream or film videos all the time. My reaction videos, those of you guys that have been around for a while, I used to make reaction videos in bed because I was having too much serious pain issues that I couldn't sit up at the desk and do it. But there was negative trade-offs for that. I had to use a phone camera to record, and that also led to it taking longer to do the editing process. So eventually I said, you know what, I'm just gonna have to sit up with better equipment to make the videos look better, but they might not come out as often. So you have to like make these trade-offs, and that has to do with accessibility. What is available to you? This sort of issue with sitting up with mobility is something a lot of people with disabilities face, beyond what I have. The same thing with utilization of controllers and that sort of situation. And of course, that also comes into things like traveling to conferences, YouTube conferences, or Twitch conferences, or competitions for fighting games, being able to travel places in order to participate in those events become kind of important. And it's really difficult, again, if you are really not barely able to leave your house, let alone travel hours away in a car, and then by the time you get there you can't function because you used up all your day's reserves just on the traveling. So it can be a very difficult situation, guys, and I know I don't want to sound like that I'm just whining or everything putting this out here, because as I said, I'm fortunate in that I'm not in the position of a lot of other people with chronic illnesses who are by themselves. I have family that help me, and I don't have to go outside the home and work every day and struggle through that and try to just struggle through the pain, because I don't think I would have been able to do it. I don't know how I would physically survive. So I don't want to complain too much in that way. I'm very lucky and fortunate, and I'm fortunate to have found these communities online where I can socialize with my YouTube community and the people that love my videos and who watch these shows with me and talk about them, and with the FGC and the friends that I've made through there has allowed me to socialize and have a life the last couple of years, basically, of some kind, a social life. But there are these challenges, and they're real. And if you know a chronically ill or disabled content creator or streamer, if you like their content, if you want to support them, just some things you can keep in mind. The biggest thing is just understanding. Understanding when they can't be consistent. Understanding when they need to take, say, a month or so off. Understanding when they maybe are not going to be as top tier in a game, or even in terms of their videos not being as top tier as anyone else's because they don't necessarily have the time. And then, you know, if you're someone that has the resources to, say, continue to subscribe to someone on Twitch, or to put $5 towards a Patreon, something like that. Again, I know it's hard to do, especially when you feel like the person is not consistent in their output, but continuing to support them even when they're not super consistent means more than you know, because that goes towards our, you know, survival, and also shows that you do understand that we want to be consistent, that we put all the effort we have into it whenever we can, and it's just things are just outside of our control, and that you want to help us get to a place where we can at least continue to make content when we are physically able to. And that comes out the most in continuing to support, even when breaks have to be taken, and not getting too upset when you sometimes have to wait a little while, and just trying to understand. Again, I know it can be difficult, but that's the biggest thing that you can do. And then other than that, you know, in terms of accessibility, advocating for more accessibility in conferences, in travel, in financial support for people with disabilities and chronic illnesses. Those are all things that you could do publicly that would be helpful. But the biggest thing really is continuing your support, whether that means financially through Patreon and Twitch, or just continuing to watch the videos even if they take a while to come out, and that means a lot to people. But all right, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap this up here. I think I've talked about it enough. The other thing I was just gonna say is, luckily for me, I also do commentary. I'm a commentator, and that's something that if I don't have to have a camera on, you can pretty much do it most of the time. So I have that option anyway. But thank you so much for listening to this, and I hope this was helpful and speaks to some other people out there with chronic illnesses and disabilities too, speaks to some of your issues. If you have other thoughts, other ideas, things that you have faced, challenges, please do feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And just thank you all very much for being here. Bye.